Thank you, Mayor. Council, Shane Moody, President and CEO of the Destin Chamber. I came before you all 2 months ago, 3 months ago when this first came up, and we gave you all a position paper, so you've seen that, you've read it, and I made comments on it that night, so I'm not going to go over that again. But some things that we would like to point out that we have some concern about. In the grandfather clause, it doesn't sound like buildings that are in existence now are protected if they get more than 51% damaged in a storm or some other disaster, which means that some of the better buildings we have in the community, if they get damaged, you can only go back to about 3 stories or 4 stories on them rather than the 6 to 8 or 10 that we may have now, which completely removes the value of those properties because they're not going to be able to be rebuilt at that. We're concerned about that. Measuring from the water line instead of the crown of the road in the Harbor District is also a concern. There are several really good restaurants, very popular restaurants there, that if they get damaged, they would not be able to be built back because they're already well above the height limit that exists there. I can't read my own writing. There's also some concern about mixed use in some areas that we could use residential development, also parking. One of the best ways to build affordable housing, workforce housing, is to build a 3-story garage and then put townhomes on top of it or apartments on top of it. We would not be able to get that done in some areas because you would be above the limits. As well, there are some other areas where we could do mixed-use redevelopment. A good example would be using apartments that are being built on commons right now that are on county property under county jurisdiction. We wouldn't be able to do anything like that in the city because they would go above the height limits there. So those are some of the concerns that we have in addition to the things that we stated a couple of months ago, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Peter Bos, 3889 Indian Trail. First concern is going back all the way back to the Vision 2000 and the Sasaki plan and every plan that went on for 20 years now. One of the big challenges was to create a measurement of height that encouraged a varied roof line and a roof line that was visible from the ground. Remember, as a building goes up, your angle, your line of sight, so getting a greater pitch was important, but that pitch is also expensive. So there was some incentives where at least you could use, as long as it was tied to the top floor unit, where you could have a loft inside to recover some of the cost. This also allowed you to hide air conditioning units, et cetera, et cetera. As I read this now, you limited that to 6 feet on residential and 10 feet on commercial. Well, 10 feet parapet wall won't even hide an air conditioning unit on a pedestal that's on top of a commercial building. And as we saw in those pictures, we are going to end up with a whole lot of flat roof buildings because if we cut the height down, you're going to use, any developer, myself included, is going to be working to maximize the space. So the whole idea of having that extra, the ornamentation that comes with a varied roof, and I hate to say it, but the discussion was a long time ago, we didn't want to look like Holiday Isle. We didn't want that sea of flat roofs. Unfortunately, this ordinance lends us, there's no incentive to encourage roof lines other than flat. In fact, it will be all flat. And 2, as we notice, the apartments that are being built are typically built to a 4-story walk-up condition today. That's the only way the economics work. And we basically have completely ruled them out. So if we look at the North Shore of Destin and we look at those areas, we have banned anyone from building those kind of economical apartments. So that's your typical model now nationwide. So it kind of takes us out of the field of trying to redevelop that area, in my opinion. And then finally, obviously I've given consideration to the awesome economic adverse impact that these draconian reductions in height and intensity and density and the have on those few pieces of property that are available along the harbor to be developed. And you also, as you get rid of what's called double dipping, which has kind of a negative connotation, remember that the North Harbor District is meant to be a mixed district. And commercially, frankly, having experienced now for 10 years running commercial operations, they don't make enough money to actually pay for their construction costs yet. We don't have the revenue. streams that do that. We don't have the rent base that does it. So what happens is it all goes to a residential, but you don't get the mixed use that we've all been fighting for when you make one replace the other. I would urge you, in the real summary, please don't take the city, I thought, came up with a very clever plan. I don't know who did it. It was done 10, 15 years ago, but the measurement of height and the incentive in that program that's in our current land development code is really the best that I've seen, and it really is a good program, and hopefully to get rid of as many flat roofs as we can. 2, please make sure that you don't set height limits which feel good, but you're effectively wiping out a whole market segment as we try to redevelop and create workforce housing, affordable housing, multifamily, and those kind of things on our north side of 98. And then 3, you have had this is a huge adverse impact on a lot of properties that people have owned for years and years and years. And whether they amalgamate those properties or they develop them separately, when you take the height down, you basically cut the density, and then eliminating what you call double dipping, you've effectively cut the property value by 60% or more. So there's not many people who do that. I'm going to one more thing real quickly while I've got a few minutes. We've learned the hard way. If you're on a waterfront site and you can't see the water, the property value has declined. We had units at Emerald Grand that faced north, which is still nice. It faced Crab Island. We could not sell them for 50% as much as ones that could see the East Pass or the harbor. Not 50%. And when the recession hit, we had not sold a single unit facing Crab Island. So as you put these buildings and you lower the height, you're going to end up with these rectangular boxes. We went through this with the Sasaki plan and that. You're going to end up with units facing east and west, which means they're going to face their neighbors, or you're facing Highway 98, and that'll never sell. So if you really want to have any development or do anything, and not basically completely devalue this property, you have to be able to go up so at least the people can have the view, and you create more visual and green space between the buildings with step back so you can see the harbor instead of just flattening everything out. Please reconsider those points. Thank you.